Ever feel like life's just one giant obstacle course? Like you're constantly dodging curveballs and trying to, stay upright.
Yeah, tell me about it.
Well, today we're diving into something that might help. At least that's what we're hoping. It's this cool mashup of, get this, ancient Stoic wisdom and the modern ideas of continuous improvement.
Yeah, combining that ancient philosophy with like practical hands-on tools, it's like giving yourself a superpower upgrade.
Right. Like inner strength meets a Swiss Army knife for life. So first, let's tackle Stoicism. Now, a lot of folks, when they hear Stoicism, they think emotionless robots.
Yeah, no, not at all.
It's not about like stuffing your feelings down. It's more about, and this is where it gets good, it's about understanding them, like
Mhm.
mastering how you react to all that emotional stuff.
And like figuring out what you actually have the power to change
Hmm.
versus what's just like the world doing its thing.
Right, exactly. And some of the big names in this philosophical game, you've got Zeno, Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, Seneca,
Yeah, heavy hitters.
big thinkers who were all about this idea of, okay, what do we control? Our thoughts, our actions, what don't we control? Pretty much everything else.
And from that, you get these like core stoic concepts. So there's this thing called the dichotomy of control, which is basically like that understanding of what's on me
Hmm.
and what's just like the universe.
Okay, yeah, I'm starting to see how this could be helpful.
Right. And then you've got more fatigue, this beautiful idea of like not just accepting fate, but loving it, embracing whatever comes your way.
Hmm, interesting.
Then there's premeditatio malorum. Sounds intense, right? But it's basically thinking about potential problems before they happen.
So you're like mentally prepared.
Exactly. And sometimes just thinking about it can actually like lower your anxiety. And of course, at the heart of it all is this idea that virtue, things like wisdom, justice, courage, self-control, that's the ultimate good.
Like that's what we should be aiming for, not
Mhm.
just, material stuff, but being good people.
Yeah, that's the goal. Now, shifting gears completely, we've got continuous improvement or CI. This comes from the world of like manufacturing and business. Think Kaizen lean.
Right, efficiency.
It's about this mindset of always looking for ways to make things just a little bit better, step by step.
No need to be perfect right away, just keep tweaking the process.
Exactly. And a big part of CI is this thing called the PDCA cycle. Plan, do, check, act. You plan out a change, try it out, see what happens, then adjust and do it again.
Makes sense.
Then there's waste elimination or muda. It's about cutting out anything that's not actually adding value.
Like decluttering your to-do list, but for your whole life.
Uh-huh, yeah, kind of. And then there's root cause analysis, where you dig deep to find out why a problem is happening. You use tools like the 5 whys, basically, asking why 5 times to get to the real issue.
Interesting.
Or there's this visual tool called an Ishikawa diagram, kind of like a mind map, but for problems.
I love a good visual.
And lastly, there's standard work. This is about creating a like baseline way of doing things, so it's easier to see where you can improve.
Okay, so we've got these two seemingly totally different things. Ancient philosophy on one hand, modern efficiency on the other. But here's the question. This is what we're digging into for you.
Hmm?
How can Stoicism and CI work together to help you, well, survive and thrive in the chaos of modern life?
That's the million-dollar question. So let's jump right into it. Let's start with something I think everyone struggles with these days, mental health, like anxiety and feeling overwhelmed.
Oh, for sure. Now, the Stoics would say feeling anxious or down, it doesn't mean you're like broken.
It's more like a signal, right?
Yeah, like a check engine light.
Exactly. And Epictetus, he had this great line, it is not things themselves that disturb us, but our judgments about them. Meaning, it's not the event itself, but how we're thinking about it that really gets us.
Okay, that makes sense.
And this is where CI comes in with some practical tools, like journaling. It's like a feedback loop for your emotions.
So you can track like when you feel anxious and what might have triggered it.
Yep. And once you start seeing those patterns, you can experiment with little changes to your habits, or even some ideas from cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, to see if you can respond to those triggers differently.
Interesting. But here's a question. Some people might say Stoicism is all about suppressing emotions, which we know isn't always healthy. What do you think?
Well, a Stoic would probably say, hold on a sec. Observing an emotion, understanding where it's coming from, that's not the same as pretending it doesn't exist.
Right. It's like acknowledging it without letting it control you.
Exactly. It's about creating space between what happens and your reaction so you can make a choice about how you want to respond.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Now let's talk about something else that's pretty universal these days, work burnout. And that feeling like you always need to be productive, productive, productive.
Oh, yeah. The hustle culture is real. But Stoicism offers a really helpful perspective here.
Okay, tell me more.
Think about Marcus Aurelius, right? He was all about finding fulfillment in doing your work with virtue. It's not just about hitting those external goals, it's about how you do the work.
So even if you don't get the promotion, you can still feel good about, like, working hard and being honest.
Right. And CI, on the other hand, can give you the tools to avoid burnout in the first place.
Like how to work smarter, not harder.
Exactly. You can map out your workflow and find tasks that are just wasting your time and energy. That's lean thinking in action. Then you can focus on the things that really make a difference.
And maybe use that Pareto principle thing, the 80-20 rule.
Exactly. And it's interesting, there's this debate about whether it's possible to be productive without becoming obsessed with output. I think Stoicism gives us the ethical side, the why behind our work, and CI gives us the practical methods.
Okay, so it's like a balancing act.
Yeah, I think so. Now let's shift to another biggie, social media,
Hmm.
and how it affects, how we see ourselves.
Oh, yeah, that's a tricky one.
Totally. But the Stoics have some really relevant advice here.
Let's hear it.
It's about detachment, not getting caught up in what everyone else is doing or saying. Seneca talked about this, about living by your own scorecard, not chasing external validation.
Ooh, I like that. Your own scorecard.
Right. And from a CI perspective, you can actually do a social media audit, really look at which accounts or what kinds of content are making you feel bad or feeding those unhealthy habits.
So, like those accounts that make you feel envious or insecure.
Exactly. And the question here is, can we get external validation, especially online, without letting it mess with our values? Stoicism says, stand firm in your principles no matter what. CI might say, hey, maybe you need to redesign how you use social media altogether.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Now, let's talk about another big source of stress for a lot of people. Money, or the lack thereof.
Ugh, yeah, financial anxiety is the worst. And then there's the whole materialism trap.
Always wanting more, more, more.
Exactly. But Stoicism encourages a kind of indifference towards wealth. Not that it's bad to have money, but it's the clinging to it, the fear of losing it that causes suffering.
So it's about appreciating what you have without being attached to it.
Yeah. And CI, it's all about practical systems for managing your money. Think budgeting not as punishment, but as a way to make sure your spending aligns with your values. There are some great tools out there, like zero-based budgeting, that can really help with this.
Makes sense. So the big question here is, can you want financial stability without being obsessed with money?
Right. Is it about being smart and responsible, or is it about that fear of scarcity? Is being frugal a Stoic virtue, or is it just good CI? Maybe both.
Good question. Okay, last but not least, let's talk about relationships.
Ah, yes, the ultimate human challenge.
So what's the Stoic take on navigating all that messy human stuff?
Well, Stoicism emphasizes focusing on what you bring to the table. Your integrity, your kindness, your effort. It's not about keeping score of who's doing what for whom.
It's about being a good person, period.
Right. And CI comes in with tools for improving communication and working through conflicts.
So things like regular check-ins with your partner, setting aside time to talk about how things are going.
Exactly. And maybe learning some communication techniques to help avoid those big blowouts.
Now, there's a subtle difference here, right?
Right.
CI is often about making the relationship better, smoother. Stoicism is about being a good person, no matter what the other person does.
Yeah, I see what you mean. It's CI aims for a good outcome, while Stoicism aims for integrity in the process, no matter the outcome.
Interesting. Okay, so we've talked about how Stoicism and CI can apply to specific challenges, but now let's dig into some of the broader philosophical differences.
Yeah, let's do it.
So one big one is, can we actually control our emotions?
Right, that's a biggie. The Stoics would say, well, maybe not the initial feeling, but you can control how you react, what you do about it.
But neuroscience tells us that emotions are physical. There's a lot happening in our brains and bodies that we're not even aware of. So maybe we have less control than we think.
True. But this is where CI can be helpful. Even if you can't instantly change how you feel, you can track your emotions over time, like using a mood tracker app or keeping a journal. And that data can help you see patterns and experiment with different ways to shift your emotional baseline.
So maybe it's less about control and more about understanding and working with your emotions.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it. Another interesting contrast is perfectionism versus progress. The Stoics were all about striving for excellence, but not in a, like, obsessive way.
It's more about living virtuously, doing your best with the right intentions,
Exactly. And CI is all about embracing imperfection as part of the process.
like making small improvements over time, Kaizen, right?
Yep. And the funny thing is, both Stoicism and CI are kind of about letting go of the ego. Stoicism says focus on virtue, not on being perfect. CI says just keep iterating, keep learning from your mistakes.
So both paths lead to a little more humility.
Yeah, I think so. Okay, and then there's the ultimate question, fate versus agency.
The Stoics, they were all about amor fati, accepting whatever happens, seeing it as part of a bigger plan.
But CI, it's about believing you can change things, improve things through your actions.
So those seem kind of contradictory, right?
Maybe. Or maybe it's about accepting what you can't control emotionally while still working to make things better practically.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so how can we actually put all of this into practice?
Well, one way is to create a daily routine that combines Stoic reflection with CI principles.
Okay, I'm liking this.
So you could start your day with a little premeditatio malorum, that Stoic practice of mentally preparing for challenges, and then do some CI-style planning, like setting your priorities for the day.
Okay, so you're mentally and practically prepared for whatever comes your way.
Right. And then throughout the day, you can do some check-ins, like little feedback loops to see how things are going, both emotionally and in terms of your goals. And of course, journaling can be a great way to reflect on your thoughts and actions.
Yeah, that's a good Stoic practice too.
And in the evening, you could do Seneca's evening review, where you think about your day and what you learned, and then tie that into the CI/PDCA cycle. Review your plan, what happened, and what you might need to adjust for tomorrow.
I love the idea of ending the day with some reflection. Now, the source material also mentions a decision-making grid that can help you apply both a Stoic and a CI lens to different situations.
Oh yeah, that's a great tool. So for example, let's say you lose your job. A Stoic might say, okay, that sucks, but I can't control that. What I can control is my reaction, how I choose to move forward.
And a CI perspective might be, okay, how can I improve my job search strategy? What skills do I need to develop?
Exactly. Or let's say you're having a conflict with someone. Stoicism would say, focus on your own behavior. Are you being fair? Are you being kind? CI might say, okay, let's talk about this. What's the root cause of the problem? How can we communicate better?
And if you're feeling burnt out, a Stoic might say, hey, are your actions aligned with your values? Maybe you need to reevaluate your commitments.
And CI would say, let's look at your schedule, see where you're wasting time and energy, and come up with a plan for managing your workload better.
And with financial stress, Stoicism might encourage you to be grateful for what you have, to focus on needs over wants.
And CI would say, okay, let's create a budget, track your spending, and find ways to be more efficient with your resources.
Okay, so we've got the theory, but what does this actually look like in real life?
Let me give you a few examples. Imagine a tech startup founder. They're facing pressure from investors. Competition is fierce, such as like constant stress. They could use Stoicism to reframe that pressure, to focus on what they can control, which is their own effort and integrity. And they could use CI to track their progress, identify bottlenecks in their process, and make data-driven decisions.
That's a great example. What about someone in a high-stress job, like a nurse?
Oh, yeah, especially these days. They could use Stoic reflection to find calm amidst the chaos, to stay grounded in their values. And they could use CI to identify inefficiencies in their workflow, maybe even advocate for system-level changes to improve patient care.
And what about, like, a single parent who's juggling everything? They could use Stoic principles to prioritize what really matters, like their child's well-being, and to find contentment even in the midst of struggle.
And they could use CI tools to manage their time and resources more effectively, like creating a visual to-do list or finding ways to streamline their daily routine.
These examples are all so different, but they show how Stoicism and CI can work together in so many different contexts.
Yeah, and I think that's the beauty of it. You can tailor these principles to your own unique situation.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, the takeaway is this. We need both principles and systems. We need a strong inner compass and practical tools to navigate the world.
Absolutely. As Cleanthes put it, fate leads the willing and drags the unwilling. Continuous improvement is about being willing, about actively shaping our lives. And Stoicism helps us understand why we're doing it, what truly matters.
I love that. So before we go, we want to leave you with a few questions to ponder. What if personal growth wasn't a destination, but a journey, a system you're constantly refining?
What if, instead of trying to control everything, you focused on cultivating inner peace?
And what if improving yourself wasn't just about feeling better, but about becoming the best version of yourself.
If these ideas resonate with you, we encourage you to check out the source material we mentioned. For Stoicism, you've got Meditations by Marcus Aurelius, Letters to Lucilius by Seneca, and Discourses by Epictetus.
And for CI, you can explore Atomic Habits by James Clear, The Toyota Way by Jeffrey K. Liker, and The Lean Startup by Eric Ries. Plus, anything on emotional intelligence and behavior change is going to be helpful.
So yeah, thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Hopefully you found something useful, something to think about.
And until next time, keep exploring.
Yeah, keep learning and keep growing.
See ya.